Today's speaker is Bob Babisch, who is a 40-year veteran of Milwaukee World Festival, Inc., and manages a $12 million annual entertainment budget for Summerfest. In addition to leading the music production team during Summerfest, he oversees the music portion of events held on the grounds, BMO Harris Pavilion and the American Family Insurance Amphitheater throughout the summer season. He's going to talk with us today about Summerfest's 50th anniversary celebration coming up June 27th through July 8th. We look forward to your presentation, Bob, and we've made a contribution to the Rotary International Polio Plus Fund as a way to say thank you for speaking with us today. As we welcome Bob to the podium, I remind people that if you have questions, please use one of the audience microphones because the program is being recorded. Please join me in welcoming Bob.
Thank you so much for the invitation, guys. I got to tell you, I've done some Rotaries before, but man, look at the size of this crowd. I think my biggest one before this was like 60. So I once did one for 6 people, about the same number of people on the stage there. So anyway, so I'm going to talk a little bit about Milwaukee's Summerfest. A wonderful festival. It's been going on this will be its 51st year, actually, and my 41st year of the festival. So it's something near and dear to my heart. I'm going to tell some stories about the festival, tell you a little bit about the business of the festival. And if you guys have any questions, I want you to just blather them out because we're ready up here to try to answer them as best we can. We're going to have a PowerPoint on both those screens, so that'll be great. And I've got to find my shelf. Oh, look, she left that for me too, so there you go. So, Summerfest, as I said, has been around for a long, long time. The first slide that comes up is Paul McCartney. I'll tell a quick little thing about Paul McCartney. The reason we had Paul McCartney 2 years ago was because we had the Rolling Stones the year before that, and a few years before that, we had the artist Prince. And how that all worked out was in 2007 and 2009, Prince was doing some dates. And he hadn't done any big outdoor dates before, so we were one of the first big outdoor dates he did. And he liked the amphitheater, the American Family Insurance Amphitheater setup. And the reason he liked it was because it rakes up real fast in the seats as opposed to going kind of flat out, if you will. So even though there's 23,000 people in the amphitheater, it feels like there's only 12 or 13,000 people in the building. So he enjoyed playing there, and so did the guys who produced that show. So when it came time to do the Rolling Stones, it was the same producers of that show, and they were going to do all stadiums, football stadiums, but they wanted to do something different for the artists, one thing different. So they said, you should play this festival and play this amphitheater because of the reason that the way the bowl sits for the people, and it rakes straight up. So the Stones came out and did a fantastic show and loved the building and did a couple extra songs, actually. So when it came time for McCartney to come out and play, his production people talked to the Stones production people and said, you're going to love the venue, you've got to do the date. And that's how we got that. So it's kind of a relationship-built business, if you will. And then before we start, one quick Prince story, because it's just a great little story. So this is about in 2009, and we have a thing at Summerfest called the Wall of Fame, where we put artist pictures up on the wall for people that have meant something to the festival. And we asked Prince if he wanted to be invited to be on the Wall of Fame. And he said, sure, that'd be great. That was also the first year we had a new CEO at Summerfest named Don Smiley. And I said, would you like to take part in this, giving him an award? And he goes, yeah, I'd love to do that. So a couple of days before the festival, before Prince's date, we say, how would you like to do it? And Prince's people say, we'd like to have the plaque upstairs on the 3rd floor in one of your dressing rooms with a cover on it, and we'll bring the artist up, and he can pose there, and you can send pictures to the industry trades and everything like that, and then you can hang it on the wall. So the day comes to do the show. We've got the plaque up on the 3rd floor. We've got it covered, and I'm up there, and Mr. Smiley is up there, and our photographer is up there, and the photographer for Prince is up there, and he's got everything all set up. And the deal is, he's going to come up at 7:30, and he's going to pose for pictures. 7:30, we're all ready for it to start. Prince's assistant walks in and says, he's doing an interview. It's going to be a half hour. He'll be there by 8. We go, great. 8 o'clock, assistant comes up again and says, he's doing an international interview. It's going to be another 15 minutes. Okay. 8:15, assistant comes back and says, he's decided to put on his costume for the night and his makeup. Go, great. 8:35, comes upstairs and goes, he's decided he's going to change his costume. He didn't like what he had on. He'll be back up here by 9. When he's supposed to go on stage. We go, great. 9 o'clock, door swings open. He's about that tall, weighs about 110 pounds, and I go into my whole spiel. I go, Prince, the reason that we do this for people that have done something for the festival, and it means something to us that you've done something for the festival. So we want to do this plaque, and he stops me and he says, just by you saying how important this is for you is good enough for me. I'd rather not do this, thank you, and turns around and walks out. His photographer packs up his gear and goes, hey, walks out. My boss says to me, does this happen often? I said, in the music business, all the time. Anyway, let's move on. So Milwaukee World Festival is a 501c3 organization that provides entertainment, cultural, and educational opportunities for the people of Milwaukee and southeastern Wisconsin. 43 full-time benefited employees, and we have a pool that grows to over 2,500 people. So we do a lot of things for the city of Milwaukee and for the kids in Milwaukee. There's a lot of students that work down there, and it means a lot to us to try to give back to the city. This is what it looked like originally. It was actually a Nike missile site on the lakefront in case anybody wanted to attack Milwaukee is what it was, you see. And you don't know the city very well probably, but the Discovery World would be on the bottom. And you can see where it was an actual airport. And by what happened in 1968, there was some racial issues going on in Milwaukee, some trouble. And the mayor at the time, Henry Meyer, said, why can't we do something for the city and the population of the city to bring everybody together? And he was over in Germany, and he was at the beer gardens for Oktoberfest in Munich. And he said, why can't we do something like this in Milwaukee? So he came back and said to the city people, the moneyed city people, we'd like to do something like this in Milwaukee. Let's start at all the city parks. So they started up in like 1969 in all the parks in Milwaukee, and they did various ethnic dance groups and things like that. And they decided this could be successful. We've got to bring it somewhere. So they brought it to that site that I showed you before. But by 1973, we were ranked as one of the top 5 festivals in the United States. I think there were probably only 6 festivals in the United States at that time, but we were pretty proud of it the way it was. In 1978, all the ethnic festivals started up, and we ended up with, we have Festa Italiana, Festa Mexica, Mexican Fiesta, German Fest, Irish Fest, Pride Fest, Polish Fest, African World Festival will have a new name this year, and Indian Summer, and these have all been very successful. What this, another piece of the giving back to the community that we do, it gives the people a chance to come down, these ethnic groups and their organizations, to raise some money, and that's why you have the Italian Community Center in town and the Polish Community Center on the south side of Milwaukee. They've had a chance to raise money, and they're all done with volunteers. We as a Summerfest staff are there to help them in anything they need, but by and large, the volunteers do these festivals, and they go all summer long. Summerfest has had its ups and downs through the years. There's a picture of George Carlin. George Carlin, early on at the festival, got up and did a show called 7 Words You Can't Use on Television. Turns out those were 7 words you can't use in Milwaukee live either, and they proceeded to arrest him right away and haul him away. Well, they waited till the show was over. To their credit, they waited till the show was over. So he got bailed out the next day, and because they realized they couldn't charge him with anything, but he proceeded to go on every talk show that was on at night in America on television and tell that story, and made Milwaukee look kind of bad, actually, but it took us a few years to get out of that system, but it worked out for us. This is the old main stage. This is probably, let's see, if I was there in 77, this was probably 74 through 80. And that area was at the main stage at Summerfest. It was on the north end of the grounds. Lake Michigan was right in the back. And we could probably do 17 to 20,000 people in that venue. And we built this later, about 5 or 6 years later, to try to get more production values out of it, because by this time, bands were traveling with their own sound and lights, and the systems were getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and they had to fly these systems into the top of the roof so they could use the lighting. And there were a couple of beams that went across, so this wasn't working at that time either. But we were still somewhere around, I would say somewhere around 17, 18, 19,000 people. I know that a lot of times when when other people like the media in town would say how many people were there, because we didn't really have turnstile counts, they would say there were 35,000 people in front of that stage. But we knew when we indexed it out on tickets that we could maybe do 17, 18,000 people in the venue. Here's a picture from the stage looking out. It's kind of interesting. It's going into the city of Milwaukee, not much of a skyline back then, but it grew later as we went on. And of course, we sell a lot of beer. Hey, let's go. You know, if you look at Summerfest, and we're going to talk about the economics of it a little bit later, you have $21 tickets to get in, and you have sponsors that sponsor all the various stages, from American Family Insurance in the amphitheater on down. There's a Miller Lite stage, and there's a Johnson Controls stage, and Harley Davidson, and Briggs and Stratton, and a new U.S. Cellular stage. And they help, you know, defray the cost of the talent that we put on these stages. But we could never survive and keep those ticket prices if it wasn't for the ancillaries. And we've learned how to maximize our numbers on beer and food, which it pays off later on. By 1987, we needed a new home for the main stage, so we moved to the south end of the grounds, and there was a flat piece of space out there that we decided to build an amphitheater on. And amphitheaters have to be built on a hill, but it was flat. So at the time, they were building a deep tunnel project in Milwaukee, and they were using the fill for a couple of things, but they really needed to get rid of a lot of it that winter. So we cut a deal for $5 per dump truck, and we had them come in all day, all weekend, all long, and we built that earth berm and got paid for building that berm to build that stage back there. That's how it looked when it started building it, and that's how it looked when it was done in 1987. Now, as I mentioned, or I will talk about later, that amphitheater will be completely remodeled for 2020. We'll close it down the last day after the 2019 festival will be open for 2020. In 2002, we started a rebuilding project on the grounds. This is what the North Gate looked like at the time. This year, we're going to have a brand new American Family Insurance North Gate, so we're looking forward to that. And this was the Midgate stage. Midgate stage, we had a stage that looked like this. This was sponsored at this time, I believe, by Potawatomi. Now it's sponsored by Johnson Controls. There were two stages like that, one on the south end of the grounds and one in the Midgate. And we got the stages because the Atlanta Olympics had happened, and they had built stages that were these stages that they had to get rid of. So we went down to Atlanta and bought them, and piece by piece we brought them back up here, and that's how we got those two stages. 2003, the U-Line stage, which is on the north end, that's going to be rebuilt in 2019. But now we really started to kick into the redevelopment. Miller Lite Oasis, this is 2005. Needed a reworking. 2006, we opened up with a brand new Miller Lite Oasis, and that lasted for us for a few years, but it was time for a change. And then in 2016, we built another Miller Lite Oasis. And once again, we could not do these stages, and we could not keep these prices down if it wasn't for the sponsors that come and help us with this. Here it is, 2017. That's the way it looked when we opened it. 2007, the Harley Davidson Roadhouse. That same year, we had done something with Country Music Television with CMT, where they brought some artists here and they taped some specials for us. And we realized that we did not have the production values on that stage, and we went to Harley and said, "Can you help us out with that?" And they built a beautiful venue for us that opened up in 2008, which is another main venue on the grounds. It holds probably 12,000 to 13,000 people. There it is again. You know, you can see the motorcycles. I don't know if you can see those. The motorcycles in the sign, and there's also 4 motorcycles inside the stage. And those are actual real motorcycles. Every year they come out and they pick motorcycles that they want to push, and they put them up on the signs, and they put them up in the stage, and then fall, they come and take them down. So it's kind of cool. There's a little area right along the water. Then we went to work on the south end redevelopment. It was time to get to work on that. That berm is what you see back there. That's the amphitheater that we spoke of, and then there's areas right around it. That's the way the south gate looked like before we started, and that's the way the south gate looked like when we finished. It's a beautiful entrance to the south end of the grounds. We had a lot of problems with people congregating at the mid gate to get in, because the other two areas were not that very inviting for them. So all the buses would congregate at the same spot to let people off. Once we built the south gate, now we're building the north gate. It gives us a chance to expand those entrances for the people so it's easier for them to come in and leave. Here's another picture of the South Gate, another South Gate, another South Gate. Ho! 2010, Briggs and Stratton came to the table because they realized that their area needed a rebuild, if you will. And it's a smaller area. It's maybe 7,000, 8,000 seats, but we really need to do something with it. So they came to the table and helped us out dramatically in 11 with that area. Boom. And in 2012, my favorite place on the grounds right now, the BMO Harris Pavilion. It is right on the lakefront, and we call it, it's on the corner of water and water, because there's water on both sides. You see how that works? And it holds 5,000 seats undercover, reserved, and there's room for people above that. And we do a lot of the classic rock things down there, so you'll see a lot of those things. We'll branch out a little, like this year we have Janelle Monáe, but by and large, you see the Jethro Tulls and the Pat Benetars of the world and things like that in there. Beautiful venue, though. 2016, that's the US Cell connection stage that we had. It was originally built by Koss Headphones, and it's been through a few other sponsors through the years, but that was the US Cellular connection stage, and it maybe held 2,500, 3,000 people. It definitely needed an update, and that is the new stage that we have this year, and we're really excited about it. There it is, the 2018 US Cell connection stage, and it's a beautiful venue, going to hold 12,000 people. We can put full-size sound and light systems in there, and the band's going to be real happy with that. It also will have the biggest video screen on the ground, so it's going to be a wonderful addition to the festival. And what that does, actually, if you think about it, when you have the amphitheater, and that's a separate animal that we can talk about it. But when you have the Miller stage, it holds 14,000. You have the Harley stage, it holds 12,000. You have the US BMO Harris Pavilion, which is big, and you have Briggs and Stratton, which is fairly large. Taking this from 2,000 or 3,000 people up to 10 or 12,000 people gives us the opportunity to put another major act on every night that can draw those kind of people into the venue. Once again, thanks to the sponsor. And that's a good addition to the festival when you realize that the ticket is still staying at $21. There's going to be another name you're going to see out there, a major name like you can have Kane Brown, who's the biggest country star right now coming up, or you can have Nelly or things like that in there. Marcus Amphitheater in 2016, that was the name of it, as I mentioned earlier. And now we're going to have the brand new one in 2020. And there it is, the American Family Insurance Amphitheater. It's going to be gorgeous. And we're pretty excited about it. And as I tell them all the time, if you say you're going to be open on the first day of Summerfest of 2020, you got to be open the first day of Summerfest 2020. You can't have it closed the first 2 days because you already bought the bands to go in opening day. So there you are. Now, investment recap. So we're in capital improvement and equipment expenditures through the years. The early years, we only spent $62 million, between 70 and 2004. But in the last few years, we've really gone to the table to try to get this festival ready for the next 25 years. And Don Smiley, is the CEO, to his credit, has done just a great job of putting it together for us. So today we have 11 days, 11 stages, 12 hours of music every day. Average annual attendance, 850. That really is our wheelhouse. We've done 1,035,000 one year, and that's just nuts. I mean, you can't move. You can't get to the beer stands or the bathrooms, and people aren't happy with that. So when we stay around that 850 number, we're really happy. It's a 75-acre permanent site along Lake Michigan shoreline, beautiful place. A lot of diverse food and beverage vendors and lots of marketplace. And it was recognized as the world's largest music festival by the Guinness Book of World Records, and it also was voted Music Festival of the Year last year by the International Entertainment Buyers Association. So we're real proud of that because we won against the Bonnaroos and the Coachellas and the Lollapaloozas. So it meant a lot to us. The difference of our festival, if you look at our festival and all those other festivals out there, a lot of those maybe have one or two different genres of music. We have always tried to stay to that charge of being the people's festival, like Henry Meyer said years and years ago, where there's something there for everybody on any given day. So we try to hit as many genres of music as we possibly can every day of the festival. So you'll be walking along and say you like classic rock, but you see a country act, you might stop and take a listen to it. You might see a jazz act, you might stop and listen to that. You might see a hip hop act, and you might stop and listen to that. So you just kind of open up your musical horizons, which is what we try to do at the festival, get people moving around and having lots of fun. Our business model, as you can see, getting it right is always important, and our economic impact is $227 million for the state of Wisconsin. So I think we're doing something right. You can't really get a hotel room within 10 miles of Milwaukee during the 11 days, and that means a lot to us, actually. The people like it. And of course, our list of sponsors, the list goes on. As I say all the time, you could never do this festival at a $21 ticket without the sponsors that we have. And it's not just $21. You can get in every day for free if you really want to. There's a promotion every single day. Bring non-perishable food items, get in. Bring this, get in. Bring that, get in. And that's what we really try to do. Back again, Festival for the People. Music. This is kind of my thing. So booking strategies and cost of programming. In the 11 stages, you have, we open up at noon every day, and we do regional and local bands until the evening, and then we do national acts. And these national acts can cost easily 6 figures nowadays. And we also do some special days where we have Throwback Thursday, which has national acts in the afternoon, and we have Sunday Fun Day where we have national acts in the afternoon. So there's a lot of different music, a lot of things to see. Make sure you go to our website, summerfest.com, and check some of the bands out. The ground stage acts, as I said earlier, we try to be as eclectic as we possibly can. So you see all different styles of music on the grounds, and it's kind of an interesting chess match. We start the booking process right after the festival. Actually, for the amphitheaters, we're holding dates for 2019 and 2020 already, but for the grounds, it really starts sometime at the end of July. And what we'll do is we'll go fishing, is what we call it. We put together a list of maybe 70 bands we'd really like to see, and we send out offers to all 70. That usually starts end of July, early August. And it starts to sift out who wants to play for us and who doesn't want to play for us. Because you got to remember, you have an 11-day window and you have 11 stages. So you really need all the inventory, meaning bands, that are out there working or that are thinking about working or that you can beg into working, because you've got all these open slots that you have to fill. Now, when those dates start coming into us, our entertainment staff meets 2-3 days a week, and we basically, on a computer screen, have it looks like a chessboard for us, where we pick, so, okay, this act is country and says it's got to work on the Thursday. You put that there. Now you can't do another country act on the Thursday. You got to find a country act for one of the other days or 2 of the other days. So maybe you put something else on that day that's rock. Well, the country act decides they can't do the Thursday anymore. They move to a different day, and you have to move this around, and that continues all the way until the marketing people down here start yelling at us and say, get the brochures done, and then, okay, all right, we'll get it done. We'll get it done for you. So, but it's a chess game, and we're really trying to get it as well-rounded a lineup as we can for those 11 days. How are acts identified? What is important to a booking agent and manager in hard tickets versus soft tickets? Now we're going to start to talk a little bit about amphitheater size entertainers, if you will. First of all, hard tickets versus soft tickets. A hard ticket show is one where you buy a ticket for a reserved concert, if you will. I'm sure you've all gone to those already. And that gives you a specific seat. And that's a whole separate negotiation that you do with a band who's into the hard ticket world. We do on the rest of the grounds that are called soft tickets. One ticket gets you into everything. So there's no specific deal that you're cutting with a band that they're going to get a percentage of the money coming off of ticket sales for those acts. When you get into the hard ticket shows in the amphitheater side, I'm going to show you a little bit, if I have a little time yet, I want to show you a little bit about the business side of it and how that looks when you're booking bands, because people say, how much can bands make? How much do you make? I'll give you a little taste of that. So I probably should move along real quick. What an amphitheater show is, average hard ticket show is a guarantee versus a percentage, which means that the band is going to get guaranteed X amount of money, and then they're going to get a percentage after expenses. Percentage deals are either 85, 90, 95, or even 100. What the percentage means is the big number is going to the band, not to the promoter. So if it's an 85-15 split, that means, say the band's making $500,000 guarantee versus, it says 90% there. So say the band's making $500,000 versus 90%. That means they're guaranteed $500,000 versus 90% of the gross after expenses that exceeds $500,000, which means no matter what happens, you're on the hook for $500,000. So if the band does a lot of money, they're still going to take 90% of it away after expenses. And if you don't get the $500,000, you're still paying them $500,000. So it's a very, very dangerous, dicey kind of game that we play. Show you a little bit about how it works. See, look at a ticket scale for the amphitheater, the size that it is right now. So remember, it's a $500,000 guarantee. So if you look at the ticket prices, we've got 4 sets of prices. The red seats, the best seats you can get. Yellow seats reserved right behind that. Bench seats reserved behind that, and then lawn. So it adds up to about 23,000 tickets. And the gross comes out to about $765,800 before you take the sales tax off. So you're at about $725,200, right? So now you take some expenses out of it. These expenses have changed since I put this together. They've gone up, actually. But so you get your advertising, your catering, and everything else. Catering is a very expensive piece of taking care of these artists, because you have to realize some of these guys have 100 people on the road. I've served breakfast for 120 people already. I've had shows that come in with 23 semis worth of equipment. It's just crazy. It really is. But if they're doing that, it's a percentage deal. There's money that's going out for stagehands and everything else. No matter what that is, they're going to take that off the expenses. They're trying to put on the best show that they can for the public. And it's a whole different game than what it was years ago. It's a true business. So you'll see expenses are like $107,000 for the expenses for that show. So you take the gross, all right, take out the sales tax, take out the expenses. What's left is about $565,000, $370,000. I'm going to get, as a promoter, $61,800, and the band's going to make only $500,000 because they didn't get through to it. So you see how the deal kind of works for those. But why do you give the band the lion's share of the money, right? The reason you give the lion's share of the money is, for a festival like ours, it's kind of a loss leader, if you will. If you don't have the greatest acts in the world on your roster who's playing for you, then you aren't the greatest music festival in the world, or one of the greatest music festivals in the world. So it behooves you to get the best names that you can out there. But how we survive in an amphitheater setting is you survive on your ancillaries. As I said earlier, because you might have a facility fee on that, and you have your food and beverage, you have your beer numbers, and all of that. If you've got 22,000 people in an amphitheater, they're going to drink a lot of beer and they're going to eat a lot of food. And that money stays with you. The band doesn't get a piece of that. So you can survive on your ancillaries for those shows. In essence, you can give the band 100% of the ticket money for a show like that, and you're still going to make money. So that's why you do those. But you really need the names, and you really need to have them. They're important. Contracts and riders. I just want to touch on this for a quick question, then we can then we can do some questions. All the stuff about riders that they say through the years was true. When you heard about the Brown M&M stories and everything like that, those were all true. And that was actually Van Halen, and they went out one year and they said, we want 10 pounds of M&Ms, no brown ones, right? So some promoters would just cross that off the rider, and you can probably rate obscenity. Some promoters actually took the brown M&Ms and made like a sculpture of the last album, what it looked like, and things like that. But the reason the bands would do this is because Van Halen went out once on a date for a show and got there, and the sound and lights were wrong, and the stage size was wrong. And they realized that some people weren't reading the riders, the important stuff in the contract. They weren't reading it. So they said, all right, now we're going to know who read it or not. We're going to put stuff like that into the contract. And if they read it, they'll see it, So that's why it kind of happened like that. Riders in the old days, when it was the wild, wild west of concert business, I'm talking like the 70s and 80s, you would give one band a case of Jack Daniels. That wasn't unusual at all. Early Elton John dates, you'd get a 5-page wine list in there, and you had to get 2 from each page kind of thing, and that's true. That's what it was. But it was wild and crazy now, because as I said earlier, you might have 100 or 120 people on the road. It's a business. And if somebody gets sick out there, everything kind of stops. If you lose a couple of crew guys because a meal wasn't fresh or whatever it is, well, that date stops until you can find some more crew guys. If your band gets sick, all these guys are out of work. Everything stops from a revenue side, so it's very, very health conscious, believe it or not. It's macrobiotic meals. It's real tablecloths, real silverware, real china. They pick the meals that they want. If it's Tuesday or Wednesday, we're having this kind of fish. If it's Thursday, we're having chicken. They plan it out nowadays. And I bet that in last year's Summerfest, I didn't give away a case of Jack Daniels total through the whole 11 days. Maybe to the staff, but no, that's... Really, it's become a changed world. It's become a really important business, and it's big money. So that's what goes on with it. Show day. It's just we can talk about that another time, because I think we're running out of time here today. Here's the list of all the bands that are playing here for 2018. Small, I know, but it's It's a great eclectic list of acts, and we couldn't be more proud of it. Every year, I've been doing it for a lot of years, and every year is like another rebirth of the festival, because you're starting from scratch. You have no idea where it's going to go or how it's going to look, and it's exciting for us. And all of us that work at Summerfest, when you ask why we do what we do, it's like when you work real hard in an event like this, and the lights go down on a stage, and 20,000 people start to scream when the lights go back up, there is nothing like that in the world. The energy, boom, it's right there, and that's why we all keep doing it, for the love of the business. So, questions? Don't run, we got questions. Thank you so much. Anybody have any questions at all? Yes, sir. Okay, one microphone. Yep, right there.
Given that you're a 501c3 corporation, can you, I understand you promote Wisconsin and a lot of economic development. How do you give back?
All our give back, well, we have money that we have to keep saved for a rainy day, but we plow it right back into the grounds so you can see the things that we build through the years. And that's an important piece for us. And then also, we do but a good number of free events on the Summerfest grounds. We do a festival or an event every year for all the kids that are in southeastern Wisconsin that are in high school and junior high, jazz organizations or bands. And we do what's called band camp, where it's free to all the kids who want to come. They just have to pay their bus fare down. And we get national clinicians that come out to work with these kids. And they come down and we break it all on the Summerfest grounds, the different stages, to different styles that the clinicians can work on. And then we have a free lunch for everybody. And then we have more clinicians in the afternoon in the jam session, and the kids get to go back to school. Things like that we're always trying to do for the community. And we also do some things now where we give certain fees from our foundation to different schools and different charities that are important to the music business. One more. And I'm done.
Continuing on the business aspect, how do you determine the cost of the stage sponsorship, or is their involvement only the capitalization of the buildings?
No, that is in a negotiation that we do with the sponsor. Of course, the capital part of building the project, and we try to help in that also. But then when we look at the size of the area and we explain to them what it's going to cost to put the kind of talent down that we need to keep that stage as relevant as another stage that size on the grounds, and then we ask if they can help us on that side, and we cut a 10-year deal usually. Oh, she's making me leave. Thank you. This is yours.
Thank you, Bob. We are adjourned.